implement the lofty proposals they have put in their manifestos. Because if you look at the manifestos, we have very good promises. Based looking at the economy, and there's differences between the manifestos, but there's an agreement that we must focus on agriculture. We must focus on the informal sector. We must create wealth. We must open up these value chains and democratize our economic system. These are great and lofty ideals, and I think it's a big win in that citizens have been heard. But in Kenya, our problem comes to at implementation stage. We have a political elite, we have a government administration that really roundly does not implement, subverts the law, avoids the law, evades the law. So that is the big question, and we want to hear what are the tangible proposals we have. Tangible proposals we have for the implementation of that. But also, I think we have to look at track record. Professor says that I'm hitting below the belt, but track record is how do you measure somebody when you know, when you're assessing somebody for an employment position. You look at their ideas, you look at their education, you also look at their track record. What were you doing before? And we're not saying we are witch hunting or moralizing. We're just saying, have you been consistent in terms of your ideological position, in terms of how you've conducted yourself in public office?
Asaska, I'll come to you. I see you're itching to respond, but I want to show you what's going on right now. The registration is happening as we speak. The auditorium will be full to capacity, 600 strong, all of them invited guests. It's happening right now. If you're prior invited to this conversation, then you're being cleared. There's a tight security check at the corner. The chaperones are there waiting to pick each and every person who they are assigned to. You can see them lining up there. As soon as the candidates come in for debate 1, we will usher you straight to the auditorium when the conversation will begin at around 5:30. Justina Wamai for the Roots Party is expected here anytime from now. Ruth Mutua of Agano Party is also expected here anytime from now. The moderators will be Francis Gashuri and Zubeida Kome. As soon as that kicks off, we will take you there. But Saska, I was coming to you on this. Is it true what Wanjiru is saying, that it's the political system that frustrates the aspirations of Kenya?
Culture.
Not the system, the culture. Political culture.
Trevor, I totally agree with Wanjiru here. And I don't know if politicians forget that Kenyans do read their manifestos. They do scrutinize it to ensure that it does reflect our needs and our aspirations as a country. I think there is that missing link because we have beautiful manifestos with lofty promises, as Wanjiru has alluded to. But the thing is, there is no clear-cut implementation roadmaps on how best all these promises and commitments will be executed at the end. And that's what we're missing in this country. It's 6 years since independence. And as much as we have beautiful policies in place, beautiful policy frameworks and regulations, we still fail at implementation. And it's time for us to ask ourselves, why is this so? Why does this keep happening?
Prof, do you agree with that? It's only about implementation rather than the policies we have. We have enough laws.
And this thing comes in my mind very clearly. I think when Raila was the deputy president or something like that, I remember him Prime Minister. I remember him in a safari park, and he emphasized, he did actually say in my presentation in 3 words: implementation, implementation, implementation. And I hope we can do that. It's not just the manifesto. Even our strategies. I'll give you an example. Kigali Stock Exchange, actually brought from here. The CBC, there are people who have run away with it. And it's something perhaps, as we look at all this, I think it's also really to see them, all these things they're saying, what is the foundation? And one of the foundation is education. And I think Dr. Baraza has pointed out here. And I think it's very important to distinguish here the youth and workers.
Prof, hold the thought on the youth in just a bit, because one of the candidates has already arrived. That is Ruth Mutua of the Agano Party, and she's standing by there with Michelle Ngele. Let's find out how she's feeling just ahead of the debate. Michelle?
Right, Ruth Musheru, she's the first candidate to make it for the debate here, which is about to begin at 5:30 this afternoon. Trevor, good to see you today. You are the first of 2 candidates in the first debate. Are you ready?
I'm very ready, Kenyans. I am here to bring our agenda and to give you the view and what manifesto we have as the Gano Party. We are ready and a privilege. Thank you for giving us this chance in the Media Council.
It is a third deputy presidential debate. What are your expectations within those 90 minutes?
To air the manifesto, to air what the Kenyans want to hear from us, what we are coming to bring in, yes, as the Badilisha team.
What do you expect from your debater, Justina Wamai?
She will come and bring forth what she has for the Kenyans. Right. We can debate from that point.
Thank you. That is Ruth Musheru. She is the first candidate to make it for the deputy presidential debate here at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Trevor, over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. And Prof, you're finishing your thoughts on the issue of
every time I'm coming, there's something,
there's something
commercial break is coming in.
This is happening in real time.
I'm trying to bring a nexus, which I think Dr. Barasa brought very strongly. And Wak also brought it, the issue of employment. And where I come from, our young people are not really looking for employment. They are looking for opportunity to create employment. And that is important. And I link that, I step back and link that to CBC, the curriculum-based...
competency-based curriculum.
Competence-based curriculum. And what do I see the candidate linking that to what it translates to create opportunities for young people to create employment. And there are people in this town, I have some Maroto survey around me, and I've mentioned him, Kiprono, Kitoni. I did happen to have teach him campus, and he said, by then I'm not going to be employed, but I'm going to create employment. That gentleman today has created employment. That's the kind of youth we are looking. But how do the deputy president, they hold very high position, link that to what happens in the classroom? Right now, there are issues. When you look at the curriculum we have adopted, very expensive. Curriculum drives everything, but we need to look at in that perspective. But the leadership, Wanjiru, I totally agree with you. I had an opportunity to work in government, and so there are certain terms you use. I remember one time talking to the public service. You don't say they have no skills. You say they have limited skills. So I could be talking about leadership, but really talking the issue of prudent utilization of the taxes we are paying. That's a big hole. Somebody has to look at that. Because today you go excise duty 16%. Left and right we are being taxed. And we Kenyans really we like to pay taxes, but we must see what the taxes are doing. So I've already have that sting. I think I wish the candidates who are coming, please go beyond your manifesto. We have led them. But tell the Kenyans, if I'm going to do this, how are we going to do it? That's what we would expect from them.
Let me bring in Rima on this. And Rima, let's now talk about the cost of living and the economy. So according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, inflation has actually reached a 5-year high of 7.9%. Public debt is at 8.5 trillion. So Azimio is talking about agriculture, livestock farming, and blue economy that will then grow the agriculture sector by 30% of the GDP. Is that where the solution lies as a young person, considering that the average age of a farmer today is 70?
Yes. The average age of a farmer is old because, again,
that word old
is
because she's young.
mature than
that's a better word.
To advertise for youth to enter agriculture. They will come on their own. And also, I agree on Prof's point in terms of youth looking for opportunity. But this country is not very conducive toward small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and young entrepreneurs. It is a struggle. The number of youth who even struggle with, say, the paperwork required and the costs of it, or the taxes to even have that business, it clamps your company before it can economy agriculture, because a lot of countries are looking internally in terms of specialization. But we also have to remember that this administration was focusing on housing. We've talked about the high cost of living, and one of them is housing. Youth right now talking about land, owning land, buying a house, building a house is not even part of conversation right now. You cannot afford it. But with this administration, they talked about housing. What happened to that? They managed to do some, some, but not as many as we anticipated beginning with their term 10 years ago. And number two, they talked about manufacturing.
Yeah.
What happened to that? The president had a whole idea of having civil servants wearing Kenyan-owned, Kenyan-made fabric on particular days, which is Friday.
Kenya.
Yes. But then what has happened with that? Even when we talk about implementation, the culture to want to support Kenyan-owned businesses is still far behind. And when you even see youth who are in agriculture, a lot of them complain about how there are certain policies that prop up. All of a sudden you need a license to start bee farming. All of a sudden you need a license to grow grass to be able to feed your cows. All of a sudden it's cheaper to grow onions in Tanzania and I get my eggs from Uganda. And so we have to look at how can we improve the business environment for young people. It will be important because we're looking at integration. We haven't talked about the free trade, Africa Free Trade Area that is now in place, and youth being able to see opportunities in areas like Rwanda, Kigali that we've talked about, and the fact that now that exchange will come into place, and it will also change the conversation on currency. And how we trade and what we're trading.
Okay. And Dr. Baraza, in hindsight, what is missing when it comes to youth empowerment initiatives? Because some of them have been there, but they've collapsed on their faces. Or is it that the uptake has not been there? In your view, what is missing when it comes to youth empowerment?
I think what is missing is seriousness in following those programs through, in implementation. I know there are programs, there are funds, we hear of funds, youth funds, but I think implementation is not good. Nerima has touched on a very important issue. Youth try to do things, to farm, for example, or to rear chicken, for example, but they have no market. And the reason is we, the powerful, occupy that space. Okay, we deprive them of market. They cannot afford inputs because they are too expensive, and so that leaves the powerful, the rich, to do the business that the youth could engage in. So I think we strangle them along the road, along the way, and so we just don't enable them to succeed.
It's the enabling environment that's not there.
The enabling environment is not there.
Okay. Asaska, we were speaking about the Azimio manifesto of agriculture, but Kenya Kwanza, on the other hand, also is pledging to invest 500 billion over the next 5 years in the smallholder agriculture and informal sector. Will the proposed agricultural initiatives guarantee food security to all Kenyans?
Thank you, Trevor. Definitely, as we all know, cultural sector plays a big role, is a key driver to Kenya's economy. And in 2021 alone, it contributed approximately 22.4% towards Kenya's GDP. Definitely, agriculture is a sector that enhances productivity and thus cannot just be wished away. And in that case, as you've seen in the Kenya Kwanza financial commitment towards agriculture, they've set aside, I think, about 250 billion Kenya shillings within the financial year of 2023 to 2027. And definitely, if it's implemented better, if the commitment is, if a firm commitment is in place, I think agriculture can contribute sustainable development agenda by increasing food security, alleviating poverty, and even employment creation. And we lack that in a big way. Because the sector alone, as you know, employs about 40% of our total population. So that's a huge chunk.
Wanjiru, is that the direction to take, agriculture? Is that where we should focus on?
Well, yes. And, you know, in our advocacy, looking at the crisis of public debt, that really goes, even before we entered into the COVID era, our economy was on a very weak footing because of imprudent choices, imprudent development choices. This large infrastructure development, eating up all the money, financed by costly debt, with corruption written in there, conflict of interest, real mismanagement of the economy by the Jubilee administration. Because of that, we are in this economic crisis. But even then, if you listen to the Parliamentary Budget Office, they were looking at the economy and saying majority of people are employed in the agricultural sector, over 50% of Kenyans. This, even during COVID, it was the steadiest contributor to our GDP, because you're talking about the backbone of our economy. Yet our investments are in places where people aren't employed, where the large infrastructure employs very few people. So yes, it has to be agriculture, and this is why I'm saying that there are wins. Even before we start the debates, before we go to the election, there are wins. The parties have listened. They have prioritized agriculture, because both parties have prioritized agriculture. They have prioritized the informal sector. Both sides have recognized, we've had numerous policies on the role of the informal sector, the importance of the informal sector, but governments keep ignoring them. They have prioritized manufacturing and are linking manufacturing to agro-processing, which is to the agricultural sector, to the informal sector. So they are, committing to make those linkages. So the question becomes, that's why we are saying implementation. Can we trust the political parties, after they have wooed us with their promises, that when they sit in the seats of power, they will do what they have said, that they will listen to the citizens, they will be accountable to the citizens? Do they show in their manifesto the democratic space, civic space, the social accountability back to the citizens, the civic education to empower citizens to be very engaged, and answerability to the citizens? Do they show the public sector transformation to transform from the culture of impunity to the culture of compliance? Do they have the intergovernmental relations? We have seen the fights between county and national government under Jubilee that has really destroyed, almost destroyed the health sector. So are they speaking to the culture change that we need and the accountability that we need to implement these promises?
Asaska, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, Trevor, let's not forget that African countries, including Kenya, have international commitments in the agricultural sector. And if you remember, in the 2009 Maputo Declaration, most of these countries have committed to give 10% of the national budget towards agriculture. And for many, 20 years down the line, Kenya has not been able to hit that target. It's always around maybe 3.5%. So it's a shame that we're not really prioritizing an industry that enhances our productivity and drives our economy.
You asked the issue of agriculture.
Yes, Prof, and that's right down your alley.
It's like
as an agricultural economist
of my life.
Yes.
I think there's a simple reason why we should concentrate on agriculture. You had lunch. You have supper. You have, it's there. We demand it. That's the bottom line. But I think the question you asked, and I think panelists, maybe something we need to look at. What do we need to do? Because we all know, and I'm always get baffled. We know, but you're doing nothing about it. One, I think it's important to reflect back in terms of the skills we provide for the youth in the education system. And deliberately will be geared. How can a country like Ukraine, probably in one of our counties, be supplying gains to the world? And they have only 6 months in a year to grow those grains. We have 12 months. My mind goes back to a Bogo farm. I have some look on Bukula. The one we have in Kiambu here called the Waruhu farm. The extension farmers. And I can tell you, Trevor, if an extension person has come to the farm, the maize was very different from the other farm. These are the kind of things we actually want to bring back. I like her point. It's actually almost, I don't know, it's almost treason opening something in this country. The way you go through, you give up. And I think it's something we are looking for ease of doing business. And I give the example. When we used to get our DL, driving license, we used to queue. And to get it, you give 1,000. Right now, you can get through your phone. This is the kind of thing when you get kids into 8. And the concept in the country, Trevor, which cannot feed their people is headed for disaster.
Yeah.
Look at US. Look at any country. What they do, they make sure that there's enough for their people. I think that's something we need to reflect back. And we should, and I like you're using the free trade area in Africa, we should be the one exporting grains out there.
Yeah.
Not exporting to us. So I think it's something we must get that. I like the word she has used, mature.
Yeah.
We are exiting that in terms of even energy. Okay. How do we get back? And also, we parents, I think we have a problem.
And Professor, you know, you're the one who said that every single time you're talking, something is always happening. Let me bring to your attention that the candidate Justina Wamai for the Roots Party has just arrived to the vicinity. She's ready to do the debate one, and Ken Mijungu is standing by with her in just a bit. Let's find out how she's feeling. And they have actually given a very interesting proposal, Prof, and I'll come to that in just a bit, on what they want to do to deal with the economy. They're talking about legalizing cannabis. But Ken, over to you first. How is she feeling?
And thank you, Trevor. And of course, Jacinta Wamai is here with us. She is the second candidate tonight for the first debate. How are you feeling now that you're here finally?
I'm excited. Yeah. Do you know I'm here to destigmatize our manifesto? So I'm energized and I'm psyched up.
You ready for this? What did you do ahead of the debate?
I prepared accordingly. You know, Kenyans are not bright, so I need to come off smart.
So we're looking forward to the debate and all the best. Asante sana. Asante. Right back to you, Trevor.
Thank you, Ken. Prof, you're finishing your thoughts on this.
Finish.
I
like this commercial break when it just comes to me. Yeah. So I think that's something, the point I was making here, we must do whatever it takes to ensure we are food secure.
Okay.
Had the opportunity to talk to the military people. If we depend on our eggs from Uganda and there's war, they'll just stop the food. They don't even have to use a tank.
Yeah.
They'll come over.
Okay.
And I think that's something we need really to look at in terms of how do we make our country secure. Okay. And if there's something I had to do, one thing, agriculture.
Yeah.
It refers to manufacturing.
Yeah. But there's a twist. There's now a twist to this entire agriculture issue. We've talked about Kenya Kwanza manifesto and Azimio manifesto. The Roots Party is talking about legalizing cannabis. That's the point I was going to hear. I hear you, Trevor, but let me ask you, and I think we need to be more serious, and I think the presidential candidate is already visiting some farms in the US of where they plant. How much of GDP does that crop bring to those economies, even where they do it? Very little. Yeah.
Then the second thing is, do we feed on that thing? There are farms here in Naivasha planting flowers. We never eat on those flowers. The most people Kenya will cash or call with their kids are in Naivasha.
Yeah.
So we also need to protect what people eat and what we sell for export. That balance is very important, and I will probably go towards grains. But the other thing is we need to change even the way we look at the grains. And I always give this example, and I think that Wako is here, I can give this example.
Yeah.
If we had unga in this cup, maize, it cannot even feed Wako. I know they don't eat ugali these days. But if we had muchere, it can feed all of us here. Okay. We need to change the grain revolution. India, Southeast Asia, there are more people than we are.
Yeah.
India is surpassing everybody in the world
in
the population. But you have never heard people have.
Okay.
Because they changed.
All right.
And najua kwako unatoka hakuna chakula kwa hapana ugali.
But Dr. Baraza, let me bring in on this issue of the Roots Party manifesto. Speaking about legalizing cannabis, yani weed. First, what would it take for that to happen? And is it a viable resource?
I think before I come to cannabis, I just want to chip in on what Prof has said about agriculture. We have strangled agriculture.
Okay.
I tried to farm. I got a big farm in Magarini. I tried to do pineapples. I tried to do sugarcane in Kwale. I tried to do mangoes. You hear of markets out there, but there is no support system for farmers in this country. I have now given up, but there is market out there. Now, the problem with this country is we like importing everything and anything because of what we stand to gain out of that. I know of so many youth who, in my endeavor to farm, I was meeting them in Kajiado. Young people, graduates, they are getting an acre here because they heard you can grow tomatoes, you can grow onions, and But we strangled it. You go down Narok, young people on weekends going to Narok to get farms to try to grow wheat.
Yeah.
So they are trying. It's not lack of will on the part of the youth.
Okay.
They are trying, but we strangle the agricultural sector because we want to import eggs, and of course, who is importing the eggs? And what about that scheme in Galana?
Galana Kulalu.
I mean, it was hyped. We all waited. We expected we are going to feed ourselves with that maize there, and then it just went silent. What happened? And of course, there is the issue of corruption. They are in this whole agricultural sector.
Yeah.
Our youth can make a living and be rich within the agricultural sector. But we strangle it. Now, coming to cannabis, okay, they say there are countries who have who are making incomes out of it.
Yeah.
I think they need to convince us and to show us real data and statistics on how and how much they are getting, and how we are going to protect our youth. I think the excited ones are not looking at it from the point of view of how much income.
Yeah.
They are excited for other reasons.
Okay.
So we need to be convinced that it's not a dangerous thing that we are driving our youth into, and that actually wherever it has been legalized, wherever it has been made as part of the agricultural sector, that it is giving them the returns that really go into the economy, to improve the economy.
All right. And Wanjiru, is this an alternative revenue stream? Because it is in their manifesto, the Roots Party of Kenya manifesto.
It is in their manifesto, and if you'll allow me, I'll just add something on the excellent points raised on the agriculture sector, which is it's important to prioritize agriculture. It's important to recognize a lot of agriculture in Kenya is smallholder farmers. It's important to recognize that as we're bringing in technology, it has to be suitable to the existing framework that we have, so that you're not bringing in very sophisticated technology that pushes out the smallholder farmer. And so my question is, where is the farmer? Where is farmer's voice? What is the governance system within the cooperatives? How do we, reawaken the cooperatives and the SACCOs that support agriculture? So I think much as we are talking about the technical and the economic priorities, we must not forget the governance. We must not forget the social accountability, the citizen voice and role, because that's Article 1. And really the sustainability of development is that citizens are at the center of development. Development with the people, by the people, for the people. And government serves the citizen. On the cannabis issue, of course, we want to maximize revenue streams. But we must remember that Kenya's problems are not just economic. We also have social problems. We have political problems. So one of the things I'm finding with the discussion we are having is that there's a strong emphasis on economic needs, which is really, really good. That's progress, because it means our democracies are maturing, but then we are pushing out some of the social and governance issues. They've kind of taken a backstage, and they have to go in tandem. On the issue of marijuana, there is a social side to it. Number one, right now, marijuana is illegal. Bangi is illegal in Kenya. What this means is there's a lot of young people who use the weed that are in prison because of owning or using small amounts of weed. There are recommendations to decriminalize bangi so that you can deal with that problem, because I think that creates inequality, and that fails to deal with, there's a disconnect between the law and the social reality. So if we are going to go into marijuana farming commercially, we then need to look at marijuana in terms of its medicinal contribution, but also as a drug, and ask ourselves, how well are we managing our drugs at present? How well are we managing alcohol? How well are we managing tobacco? What are the health impacts of these drugs? Because they are drugs much as they are legalized, and marijuana has different connotations because of the historical context, but the broader question is, what is the social support system? Kenya is quickly developing a drinking problem. Our young people are quickly developing drinking problems. This has been exacerbated by our kind of skewed taxation that we have on alcohol that makes it cheaper for young people to take hard drinks than it is to drink maybe lower levels of alcohol. So we need to talk about social impacts of the decisions we make, economic decisions we make, so that we have a holistic conversation. So my view is we are looking at one aspect but missing the bigger picture.
Okay. Asaska, is it a realistic proposal?
I find the Roots Party's Trevor proposal quite controversial and at the same time interesting. Like, if you ask me personally, I would look at it differently a bit. Yes, there's a social problem around drugs in Kenya. I don't doubt that fact. But if you look just around East Africa, if you look at Rwanda and Uganda, they've legalized the medicinal use of cannabis. And they're making money of it. They're exporting it just like tea or coffee. And they have investors who have come in and they're making money out of it, and that way they're having an alternative revenue stream that is helping develop the country. So I'm not opposed to maybe looking at it differently and having guidelines, tough guidelines surrounding the production of cannabis. I think it's something maybe we can look at, because
but
currently we have 10 countries
we don't
in Africa.
have enough regulations to deal with the drugs we have currently. So if we add another one, wouldn't
that's
that be
definitely an issue that needs to be addressed first. And if you remember the late court, MP of Kibra, he brought the Cannabis Control Bill of 2018. And he had good proposals in there, because it can be used for medicinal value. And if we restrict it, not for recreational purpose, maybe we'll be able to have very strong guidelines that can ensure that it cannot be the drug cannot be misused.
Okay. Nerima? I'm not coming to you last week for any reason.
Now, on that one, I like that you've come to me next, because I feel I hold the same opinion as Asaska. It's about looking at the differences. It's interesting. It really is. We're thinking outside the box because we have to. We're talking about a population that is majority youth, and not only is it now, it will be for decades to come. And we're talking about a global economy and a global citizen population that will continue to grow. Our health continues to improve, the standards continue to improve. So how are we managing? So things that are going to be key is access to resources, climate change, the environment, and managing pollution as we continue to increase and decrease the number of vehicles or the kind of transport and carbon monoxide going to the environment. So for me, looking at the regulations, if it's for medicinal use, it's very, very helpful for many people who are going through all sorts of long-term illnesses. It is even sometimes prescribed, and it's necessary for them to be able to survive. But then I think what a lot of people are worried about is the misuse of that. And it's the same with all the drugs that we're talking about, like Wanjiru has mentioned.
So Prof, jump in.
I think I'll pick from what he said, and it's economics. If you legalize something, it loses that value it had. You know, and it doesn't become like a gold, the black gold. But I think that what is important, and hearing that it has, and when you're right, it has the value in terms of medicinal. I think what we are balancing here is what do we do for export and what we do also for food security. So we need to balance that. So we can sell, but not at the expense. I think the first step is to ensure every Kenyan has enough food. That's the first thing. We can still plant flowers. We can plant tea. Tea plays two parts. It plays as an export, but also consume. But it's not food really. I cannot have tea and I say I've had lunch. So we think to be careful in that. The contribution to the economy is questionable, and I hope they have done their maths. I've just looked at it, and we know economy is actually saying we are getting so much from it. But the most important thing is medicinal, because it's medicinal, it helps us now to be productive in other sectors.
Dr. Baraza, I know you still want to be convinced in terms of how much money it brings to the economies that have legalized it, but legally speaking, if that was to happen and make cannabis legal, what impact would it have on the previous rulings on people who are incarcerated as we speak for having had some marijuana on them? What impact would that create in the judiciary where you've served before?
If they legalize marijuana now,
yes,
what it will have on the people in the cells?
Yes.
Well, I guess, is the law retroactive?
No.
I think the law doesn't apply retroactively, but I think the issue here is not the legalization. I think good points have been raised around Wajakoya's or that manifesto about marijuana.
Yes.
I think if it is properly managed, and personally I want to be convinced that it is of an economic value.
Yeah.
If it is, then I think a law can be passed, an appropriate law can be passed. We put in place mechanisms to protect the youth from abuse. And then I think that will be okay. But I need to be convinced that there is some useful, it is a useful venture in terms of agriculture.
All right. Let her finish. I'll come to you. Yeah. Go ahead.
As to, and then that will take care of the abuse which has caused the fellows in the cells to be in the cells.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Nasaska, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I'd like to add on what Ms. Barasa has mentioned, that yes, definitely there's a social problem.
Yeah.
We all agree. And if you look at the 10 countries, I would like to clarify, the 10 countries in Africa that have legalized cannabis, they've only legalized for medicinal use except South Africa. South Africa has legalized both for medicinal use as well as recreational use. So yes, there's a fear around the social problem that the cannabis will bring about. But I also want us to look outside the box, as Nerima has mentioned, that hey, it's estimated that in Africa alone, cannabis has a market, is worth about $7 billion by 2023. So it's a market that maybe we could try and figure out how best we can get into for the benefit of our development agenda in the country.
Okay. Wanjiru?
Yeah, so I was going to just be clear that I'm not advocating that it don't be legalized. I think I'm actually a proponent of, if you look at the social reality, cannabis is being used, it's being used by youth, that's why they're winding up in jail. So first of all, it shouldn't have been criminalized because people shouldn't be in jail because of smoking cannabis. That is quite regressive, and so that's a situation. But if I think the case that Wajakoya is making is let us legalize cannabis, and I say yes, let us legalize it for medicinal, also for social because it's in use, and regulate it in the same manner that we would regulate other substances. But recognize that right now our regulation of other substances is not doing so well. That there is a risk that we go in and legalize and we create a culture that is going to destroy our youth. And it's not just youth who have problems with substances, people our age, because we tend to moralize the use of substances instead of looking at maybe the practical. Maybe we don't deal with our mental health issues so well, maybe our social structures. So this is why I'm saying we need a proper policy framework that looks at the issue holistically, not just from an economic point of view, and definitely not from a moral point of view.
Okay, let's move away from the economy and now talk about the war on corruption. And Dr. Baraza, I'll start with you on this. You've been at the helm of the judiciary. What is really hindering the war on corruption?
The war on corruption is being hindered by corruption.
Corruption itself?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it is.
Yes.
Nice, well put.
Because we have institutions to fight corruption. We have the law to fight corruption. We have constitutional provisions, although we've watered them down, as Wanjiru says. So what is the problem? And so we hear of cases of corruption, and they are major and they are many, they are on a daily basis. They come to the courts, and probably you hear about them day one, and then that's the end of it. We just never hear of people getting convicted for corruption. So I don't know what happens, but I want to imagine that there is corruption in the fight against corruption.
People have blamed that on the judiciary for not exposing.
Well, I'm saying I'm not exonerating the judiciary from the corruption issue at all. Because there are things you just can't explain. Or in other institutions, those other institutions to fight corruption.
When you say the things you can't explain, what do you mean?
You arrest people. And by the time you go to arrest a person, you must really have a reason. So what happens beyond the arrest? All right? What happens beyond the being charged in court? I think there is so much which happens in that chain of dealing with corruption. And my argument is that there is corruption, which is fighting to sustain corruption.
So Prof, what then would be the solution?
Just deal with it head on. There's no two ways about it.
The Roots Party is suggesting bringing back the death penalty.
You deal with it head on. And what am I talking about head on? We know some countries you mess up and you are in. That's it. And look, this parallelism. We, as African culture, we respect leadership a lot. Because that's how we've grown up, to respect leadership. And I'll give you an example. Magufuli, and God bless his soul. Magufuli convinced Tanzania there was no COVID. Majimaji, the land. They believed him. We knew there was. But that trust of leadership. So today, if that leadership tells us Kenyans, I don't want this nonsense. Wako you swap, you're in. When they set it up, stay there until we sort it out.
But there's
right now
always
she has an issue. Somebody's even going that we cannot arrest her. Fine. You see the narrative you're going. You are guilty unless proved
innocent until proven guilty.
We prove you when you're inside there.
But Dr. Baraza, the reason I'm coming to you, this is because
the animal you're dealing with
firsthand.
The animal you're dealing with, and let's be a bit serious, and I think we are. The animal we are dealing with, it's what is making our food expensive today. The animal you are dealing with is the one which is making very unsafe to go certain areas. Let
me bring back Baraza before I come to the rest of my panelists. How can it be dealt with, having dealt with this firsthand?
I think the issue of integrity is what is standing in the way on the fight against corruption. It's corruption. It is lack of integrity. And we should deal with it seriously. Look at the people that we have in our institutions. Are they corruptible? From where I sit, I think they are corrupt people.
But Prof, we have enough
who are not able to deal with corruption. And that is how those cases go in such a zigzag manner that you never get to get the outcome there. If there
look at even the word the president. He said last week. Huyu atafunga nyinyi. We are looking for people tutafungwa.
All right.
Why should a youngster who is perhaps my grandson is on the road with a 33 million car? What the hell have you got the car from? Surely, even if my father is built, whatever, is that a priority? And I think she's right. It's in our bones. And you know, is something in your bones, you have to go through the cancer process. That's, you have to go through that process. At times we cut it off.
All right.
So here, sorry, let me just interject. We watered down chapter 6 of the Constitution. We watered it down because right now I don't understand how people who are facing charges of corruption are the ones seeking the leadership position. How are they ever going to fight corruption? our devolution, the gem of our constitution. What is killing devolution is corruption.
Yeah.
And they are the same fellows who are benefiting from corruption in those counties.
Yeah.
And they are the same ones running for positions of leadership. How are they ever going to fight corruption?
Yeah.
I think